Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Sylvie Smith, and I wanted to start by saying that this is not exactly the format that I wanted to have for my channel, but I really feel like I need to make this video and I need to start getting some information out there. At some point I do plan to go back and do a proper introduction video, but in the meantime, I will just give you guys a couple little tidbits of who I am and what I do, because I've never had a channel before and y'all don't know me from the person down the street. So anyway, like I said, my name is Sylvie Smith. I am a rescue medium. If you don't know what that is, I help people who have passed, usually very recently passed. I help them find closure, I help them understand what has happened to them, and ideally I help them move on. You know, just get closure or whatever it is that they need to do to be at peace. This is something that I have been doing for quite some time. I do not do it professionally. I do not do what I would call public readings. I don't offer my services. I have helped people on a personal basis, but I've never done it as a living. I have had a connection to the paranormal my entire life. I have had psychic visions for a good majority of my adult life. Although I will admit that the majority of the time they're kind of sporadic and I only get so much information, especially if it's involving someone that I don't know or I've never had any real connection with. I was already planning on starting this channel. Actually, I've been thinking about doing it for quite some time, but I do not intend to focus on national cases as a general rule. Basically, I intend to just continue to do the work that I already do, helping people, hopefully helping loved ones connect. I'm hoping that by using social media, maybe I can help more people connect. Maybe I can help more people find closure. The biggest thing that I really want the channel to be about is helping just average people, you know, not national cases that have blown up that, you know, hundreds of people are probably trying to connect with those unfortunate souls. Having said that, I have felt some kind of very strong connection to the Quentin Simon case right from the very first day. I saw it on the news the day he went missing, and something about the case just really drew me to the situation. I can't really explain it. I'm not really sure why I felt that way or why I've been so interested in it, but I can't stop thinking about it, and I just really feel compelled to share what I've seen. I have never had a psychic vision that came through as detailed and as strongly as the vision that I got in regards to the Quentin Simon case. And I really wanted to do this for two reasons, okay? First, because I never have felt so compelled in my life to share what I've seen. And two, because Leilani Simon and the family is now coming out and they're doing interviews and they're really pushing hard on blaming other people for Quentin's disappearance. And I just really feel the need to share my information, okay? So I'm going to describe this to you guys exactly the way that I saw it. It's a little bit out of order at first, but I think it will give you some context as to why I have felt so strongly about the things that I've seen. 2 days after Quentin went missing, which I believe was October 7th, I had an involuntary vision. And by involuntary, I just mean that I did not try to have a vision, it just happened, which is how my visions start most of the time. So this first vision didn't make a lot of sense to me. I saw little Quentin's body laying on cement, face down. There was the siding of a house to the right of him, and there was what I thought was like a patio door to the left of him. He looked like he was laying in a corner. And then I could see just barely the corner of a pool. But at the time, I did not know whether the family even had a pool or what the back of their house looked like or anything like that. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, so I just kind of put it aside, just figured, okay, well, I just saw a tidbit of something. Well, a few days later, I don't remember exactly what day it was or anything like that, but a few days later, they announced on the news, I think, that the FBI was draining the family's pool. And I have to be honest, you guys, I was like, holy shit, they do have a pool. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler here and tell you that I am not saying that Quentin drowned in the pool, okay? I am just trying to give you guys some context as to what I saw and what led me to try to look into it a little bit further. So after I realized that the family did actually have a pool, I decided to try to go and do an intentional vision, or an intentional reading, if that's what you want to call it. I decided to try to go back to as far as I could before Quentin went missing. I was able to go back to the night before, so it would have been October 4th. The very first thing that I saw was Leilani. She was wearing a black hoodie and some like dark gray, maybe cotton, like pajama pants, maybe lounge pants. I'm not sure what you would call them, but they're just kind of, like loose dark gray pants. She looked kind of peeved. She was walking around the house gathering her stuff. She was grabbing a phone. She was grabbing some keys. And she grabbed a little, like, wallet looking thing. Danny was in another room. I'm not sure what room he was in. And I don't have a full view of what the house might have looked like. Okay, I just see, like, a hallway at the moment. Danny comes out of whatever room he's in, and he says, "What are you doing?" And Leilani says, "Don't worry about it." Danny looks aggravated. He says, "I gotta work tomorrow." And Leilani says, "I ain't gonna be gone long, don't worry about it." And Danny is just kind of like, he's clearly aggravated, but he's just kind of like, whatever. I think that he's just had to put up with it before, and he's just kind of whatever, blowing it off, So Leilani leaves, and Danny goes back to whatever he was doing. Now, it has been said that he was giving the kids a bath. I don't know. I don't really see that. I think that he could possibly be giving the kids a bath, but I'm pretty sure that it's only Zane, the 3-year-old, and Sky, the baby, that he's given a bath to. Quentin, I feel like, is asleep. I feel like, I don't see him at the moment, but I feel like all the kids are fine and that Quentin is asleep. The next thing that I see is Danny looking into this little room. And I'm going to do my best to describe the way that I see this room to you guys, okay? It's kind of a long, narrow room. It reminds me of like a laundry room or a bathroom, but it doesn't have any appliances or anything in it. So I really feel like it used to be a laundry room. But there's no fixtures or anything in it at this point. I'm not sure how wide the room is, but it's not very wide. It's longer than it is wide. If you're standing in the doorway and looking into the room, in the right-hand corner, there is a toddler bed pushed up into the right-hand corner. In the left-hand corner, there is a twin-size bed. It's a very odd-shaped room, so it has this little cutout or like a little alcove. So if you're standing in the doorway and you look to your left, there's like a little dip in the wall, like the wall goes down and comes over and then comes back up before it comes over to the doorway. So it looks like there may have been some cabinets sitting there at some point or something like that. But at this time, there is a little portable playpen, like a little pack and play, sitting in that area. There's no door. I don't see any kind of door. It looks like either this was a room that never had a door or the door has been removed. So anyway, Danny looks into this little room and he sees Quentin sleeping on the toddler bed. He's laying on his tummy. He's sound asleep. He's fine. Okay. Zane and Sky are still awake. And next to this little room is another room. I don't know if it's a bedroom, but Leilani and Danny are using it as a bedroom. I see a bed, I see a dresser, I see a TV. There's probably, some other stuff in there as well. Danny takes Zane and Sky into that room with him, and they all lay down in bed together to watch TV. Then the next thing that I see is Leilani. Now, let me go back just a little bit. I think I forgot to say, I believe that it was around 10 or 11 o'clock at night when I first saw Leilani at the beginning of my vision. Now, I feel like it's around maybe 1:30 in the morning when I see Leilani. She comes into the house. She's got her hood up on her hoodie, and she is kind of stumbling. She is on something. I feel like it's heroin. Ever since I had this vision, I felt like it was heroin that she was on. But obviously now it's come out that her drug of choice is cocaine, I guess. But I don't know, still to this day, you guys, still, as I'm telling it to you here right now, I still feel like it's heroin. I might be wrong. I don't know. It's probably not that important. Anyway, she is definitely intoxicated. She is definitely out of it. She stumbles against the door frame of the larger room, and she sees that Danny is sleeping in the bed with Zane and Sky. They're all asleep. The TV is still on. So she stumbles over to this little room, which is literally right next to the larger room. And she falls against the door frame again, and this part I'm not sure about, but it looks to me like she vomits, like she pukes, like she falls against the door frame and then just like not a lot, but just kind of spit up. This is where things start to happen, you guys, so I'm gonna do my best to keep my composure, but if I get a little bit emotional, I apologize. Okay, I'll try to edit a little bit if I have to. Anyway, so Leilani stumbles into the room. She's walking towards the twin-size bed, but she trips and she falls. And she lands right on the toddler bed, right on Quentin. Quentin wakes up and he turns his head to the right to kind of look, but he doesn't cry, he just looks. Leilani then takes her hand and puts it right in the middle of little Quentin's back, like just square in the middle. And she pushes herself up. And she pushes hard, you guys. She just, like, all her weight, she pushes herself up. And she flops onto the twin bed. Well, doing that just forced all the air out of Quentin. It like when you get the wind knocked out of you, it just knocked the wind right out of him. He sits up, puts his little legs off the side of the bed, and he's just sitting up, and he is, he clearly has the wind knocked out of him. He's trying to breathe. He's trying to cry, but he's having a hard time getting some air in, so he's kind of making these little weird kind of noises. I don't really know how to explain that. Well, after a couple of seconds, Leilani's laying in a fetal position on the twin-size bed. Little Quentin's sitting up. He finally gets some air in, and he just bellows, you guys. He just lets it out. Just a cry, like all the air that he could get in, he lets it come out in a cry. Okay, because he's startled. He just got woke up in a terrible way, and he's having trouble catching his breath. Leilani sits up, and she's talking to him, but her words are slurred, so it's not really anything intelligible. It's mostly shh, kind of. You can't really make a whole lot out what she's saying. Just shh, telling him kind of be quiet. Then I see her take her left hand, and she puts it behind his head, and she takes her right hand, which has her hoodie sleeve down over it. She takes her right hand and she puts it over Quentin's mouth. And she's saying, shh, don't wake up, sissy, and like stuff like that. Mostly shh. Now, she is very much intoxicated, you guys. She is very much out of it. Quentin is so small, and her hand, especially with her sleeve down over it, covers so much of his face that she has his mouth and nose, and most of his face, really, you guys. She has it covered, and she's kind of squeezing a little bit, like not squeezing like to hurt him, but like squeezing to like close the gap, with her hand behind his head and her right hand over his face. Like she's just trying to make him be quiet. He's not even hardly struggling, because he was still trying to catch his breath, and he's just a baby, so like he puts his little hands up a couple of times to kind of try to pull her arms away, but mostly he doesn't even really put up any kind of fight at all. I don't know how long she held her hands over his face, but it was at least a couple of minutes. Finally, she lets go, and Quentin just flops. He just falls over onto the toddler bed, you guys. He's gone. He's gone at that point. He's suffocated. Leilani suffocated him, trying to get him to be quiet. Honestly, I feel like at this point, she doesn't have any clue what is going on. She is just happy that he is quiet, and she just falls over and passes out on the twin bed right next to him. I know that this has been disturbing up until now, but this is where things start to get weird. So Leilani's passed out. Okay. The next thing I see is that it's around 3 o'clock in the morning. Leilani comes to, and she sits up, and she notices that Quentin is in the same position that he was when she passed out. She's still pretty intoxicated. She still doesn't have a whole lot of clue what's going on. And I am not excusing her actions by saying that. I am just saying that she is definitely still not in a coherent mind. She picks Quentin up. She walks over to the playpen and she just kind of dumps him in there, you guys. She just kind of like dumps his body into the playpen. And like I said, that was around 3 o'clock. The next thing that I see is Danny. He walks over and he looks into the little room and he sees Leilani passed out on the twin-sized bed, and he sees that Quentin is not in the toddler bed. But he really doesn't think a lot of it at that point. He goes to do whatever he's going to do. He goes to get ready or whatever. The next thing I see is Danny coming back to the little room. He's dressed. He goes over to Leilani. She is laying on the twin bed on her back, and she's got her knees like up in the air. Like, you know, her feet on the bed with her knees up. Danny comes over and he, you know, like nudges her leg. And he says, "You got to get up and get the kids ready for the babysitter." And Leilani says, "I ain't taking them," in kind of a kind of way. Danny says, "They're going to be with you all day." And Leilani just kind of groans. She doesn't really say anything. So then Danny says, "Where's Quentin?" And Leilani doesn't say a word. She doesn't respond in any way. So Danny turns around and he looks. He just kind of glances into the playpen. And he sees Quentin laying there. Now, he stares at him for a couple of seconds. And I really feel like at that point, Danny knows something is wrong. But he does not check on Quentin. He does not check on Quentin. He just lets it be. And he just leaves. Now, I don't know if Danny is going to work or where he actually went, but I just know that he left the house. Once he gets in the car, he texts the babysitter and tells her that the kids are not coming. Now, I know there's been a lot of stuff going on about, well, Leilani sent the text from Danny's phone and blah, 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 and all this stuff. That is not what I see. What I see is that Danny he got into the car and then he texted the babysitter that the kids were not coming from his own phone. Okay? And we all know that text was at like 5:29 in the morning. Okay? Then the next thing that I see is Leilani come into, at this point, I believe it's around 6:30 in the morning. She sits straight up. She is in a little bit of a panic. It is starting to come back to her, I think, as to what has happened, as to what she has done. She is still not sober. She is still definitely not 100% thinking coherently. She stands up, she looks, she sees Quentin in the playpen, and she just stares at him for a minute. Then she picks him up with this little blanket. It's a light colored blanket. I think I forgot to mention that when I said about the first part of the vision that I had seen, where I had seen him laying on the concrete. He had a light colored blanket kind of draped over him, sort of. So at this point, she picks him up out of the playpen. She's got this little blanket. It's like a thin little, I don't know, maybe a knit blanket or something like that. And it's white or light blue. I think it's light blue. She takes Quentin out the back door and she lays him down on the concrete, just like I had seen him in the first little vision that I had. She lays him face down on the concrete, and I can see the siding of the house to the right of him, and what I thought was a patio door, like a closed patio door, before in my first vision. Now I can see that it's a patio door that's open. Okay, so like almost like if you walked out the door and like went behind the door. So this is part of it where it gets really weird. Leilani takes the blanket And she walks over and she dips it in the pool, like to get it wet. And then she brings it back over and she kind of like tosses it over Quentin's body. I believe at this point that what Leilani is trying to do is leave Quentin out where she thinks that someone else in the family will find him. She thinks that somebody is going to come home and find him out here laying next to the pool, and that they're going to think that he drowned, and that they're going to call the police, and that nobody is ever even going to think that she did anything. Okay? After she lays them all out like this, she leaves the door open. So it forms that corner that I was seeing before. And she goes back into the house. And at this point, you guys, it's like I said, it's only like 6:30, 6:45 or something like that. The other kids are still sleeping. Danny is gone. I don't think that there's anybody else in the house. Leilani goes back into that little twin bed and she just passes back out. She just flops back on the bed and just passes back out. Then the next thing that I see is probably around, I think that it's around maybe 7:30 or so. I feel like it's before 8 o'clock. Leilani wakes up and she can hear the other kids in the other room. You know, Zane's playing with the baby. At this point in time, she is coherent. She is, you know, maybe hungover or having residual effects of whatever she was on. But at this point, she knows exactly what happened. She knows exactly what's going on. She knows what she has done. She pretty quickly comes to the realization that nobody has come home and found Quentin. So she gets up, she goes outside, she picks up his body, and she looks at him. She looks at his face for a couple seconds, but I don't really see any emotion on her face, you guys. She just kind of like turns his body towards her body so that she doesn't have to look at his face. Leilani walks into the kitchen, looks in the kitchen garbage can, and she sees that there's not really anything in there. So she just puts Quentin into the garbage can, like head first. She shakes the bag a little bit. She pulls it up around him. She ties it closed. She goes to take it out of the can, but she realizes that it's too heavy, maybe. So instead, she picks up the whole garbage can and she walks outside and she sets it behind a car. I don't know anything about cars, so I don't know what kind of car it is. It looks some kind of black sedan or something like that. She sets the garbage can down by the trunk. She opens the trunk of the car and she takes the bag with Quentin's little body in it and she puts it into the trunk. She closes the trunk. She takes the garbage can and she goes back inside the house. She puts it back where it was and she goes and she makes a bottle for the baby. She goes into the larger room, the bedroom, or what they're using as a bedroom, I don't know. And I can't see in there, but I can hear her talking to the little boy, to Zane. She's telling him, you know, I need you to help mommy feed the baby and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure what she's doing is she is setting up this little 3-year-old to feed the baby while she's going to dispose of Quentin. All right, she goes out, she gets into the car. She pulls to the end of the driveway. She kind of looks around a little bit and then I see her take a left out of the driveway. She is driving down the road. She is looking at all of the houses and properties and things that are along the road. There are a couple of abandoned houses. There's a couple of what looks like abandoned trailers. She's driving, you know, kind of slow, but not really slow. She's just kind of trying to figure out what she's going to do, I think. When she gets down to the end of the road, she does pull off into a trailer park. I see her pull off into a trailer park. She drives around the trailer park and she goes over by the dumpsters and she stops. I do not see her get out of the vehicle at that point in time. She just stops and she kind of looks at the dumpsters, and I think that maybe she's thinking maybe that's not the best idea. So she pulls out of the trailer park. She takes a right. There's an intersection right there. At the intersection, she takes a left. She drives down the street a little ways, and there's some stores or like a little strip mall or something like that. So she pulls off over to that and up alongside the building. She starts to go back to the back of the building, but then I'm not sure if she sees people back there or maybe she sees cameras or something. I'm not sure, but she decides not to go back to the back behind this building. So she pulls back out onto the main road that she was on, but this time she takes a right and she goes back to the area that she had been to just a few moments ago. She takes a right and she goes back into that first trailer park that she had went to just a few minutes ago. She goes in there, she drives up, she pulls up again and stops in front of those dumpsters again. And I don't know what anybody has from that area. I don't know if the police have video footage or if somebody saw her or what exactly they have, but I do not see her getting out of the vehicle. I see her sitting there just kind of staring at the dumpsters, just, kind of waiting, just trying to decide if maybe she should leave him there. But I never see her get out of the vehicle. What I see is that she just goes ahead and leaves the trailer park. She pulls out of there, she takes a left, and she goes back to her house. Quentin is still in the garbage bag in the trunk of her car. When she gets to the house, she gets out and she goes into the house and she gets another garbage bag. I think that she thinks that this garbage bag is going to rip or something if she tries to pick it up. She goes to the trunk, she opens the other garbage bag, and she takes the bag with Quentin's little body in it and she puts it into the other garbage bag. So now it's like double bagged. She takes the bag and she puts it over her shoulder, kind of like a rucksack or something like that. Then I see her walking across her yard. So she is walking from the side of the house at like a 45-degree angle towards the woods that are behind her house. Okay, she follows the trail, the actual natural trail, for a few minutes, but after a little bit she goes off the trail. She goes off of it to the right and kind of goes down like a little hill, like a little incline. I don't know how long she walked. I don't know how far away from the path she actually went. But at this point, what I see is kind of like a rock or a boulder or something like that. And then in front of that, there's like a little hill or a little mound. And then there's a tree that is broken in half. So 2 or 3 feet of a trunk, and then it's broken in half. And the tree is still sitting there at an angle, like it's still attached on the trunk, and then the top of it is like resting on the ground. On the other side of this tree, there is a lot of debris, like leaves and pine needles and brush and just kind of a bunch of stuff sitting down in this little like indent right next to this tree. Leilani goes around the tree, pushes the brush and the leaves and the pine needles and everything out of the way, and there's a lot of loose, like, I don't know, I think it's like a reddish color, like dirt, like gravel, clay or something. I'm not sure what it is. It's just like dry, hard, loose dirt. She brushes it to the side, and it, like I said, it makes this like little indent in the ground. Leilani takes the bag with Quentin's body in it, and she just dumps it out on the ground. So she just dumps his little body out onto the ground. He still has that blanket on him, though. He still has that light colored blanket, like, kind of draped over his body. It's not covering his body, it's just kind of draped over him. She does not bury him, you guys. She just kind of pushes the dirt, like, up around him, and then she covers him up with the pine needles and the brush and the stuff that's laying around. So there was no digging, there was no burying or anything like that. It's just like this little indent behind this broken tree and covered with, you know, just the loose dirt and the brush and stuff that's laying around. And then she just leaves. After that, I just see her just walk away. And that's pretty much the end of what I see. Except for I do get, at the very end of this, I always feel like I am laying on the cold, hard ground. And all I can see is like I'm looking up through leaves. So it's like I'm laying on the ground of the woods, and I'm looking up through the leaves of the trees. You know, like I can see trees, I can see pine trees, and I can see like light, like mottled daylight coming through the leaves. And every single time that I think about where little Quentin might be, that's what I feel. I feel like I'm laying on the cold, hard ground, and that I'm looking up through leaves, that I'm looking up through trees, and that I can see the mottled sunlight coming through the leaves. Now, I've been saying this whole time to my friends and family that I didn't believe that Quentin was in the landfill. And obviously the reason that I don't believe that he's in the landfill is because I have had this vision. I am not saying that I'm 100% certain that my vision is 100% correct and that this is what happened to Quentin. Okay, at the end of the day, this is still my opinion. This is still my experience. This is still, you know, just what I have seen in my vision. Is it possible that at some point Leilani went back out to the woods and got Quentin and put him in the dumpster? Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely possible. Is it possible that she never even took him out to the woods like I saw? Yeah, I mean, it is. Anything is possible, you guys, but I 100% stand behind my visions. I see what I see. You know, I'm not saying that it's never tainted by emotion or anything like that. It's just what I saw, and you guys can all take it for what it is. If you don't believe, that's fine. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, or I'm not trying to convince you that I'm right. I just wanted everyone to know what I saw and what I believe happened to Quentin. So anyway, I thank you very much for anybody who's still with me. I really appreciate it. Please, you know, do engage with my content. Please like, please subscribe, please leave comments. I don't know how many questions I'm going to be able to answer about anything because I literally just told you guys everything that I saw in my vision. Okay, so you know, feel free to ask whatever questions you want in the comments. But I don't know that I'm going to be able to answer any of your questions. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. Even though this is what I've seen, you know, I'm still hoping for Quentin. I'm still hoping that he's going to be found safe and alive. But I really just don't feel like that's the case. All right. Thank you guys. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.